Casey and Zoe.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
People think of happiness as essentially a selfish issue. I want to be happy, and I want to be happy for me. I'd like to suggest that, in fact, happiness is far, far more than a selfish desire. In fact, it is a moral obligation.
Okay.
I know that most
I
was on your page for a second.
I really was ready to be like, yeah.
I was ready to agree with you.
I'm all for the idea of like be happy, not just for yourself, but also because it like spreads happiness and it makes everything more fun for everybody. But then he had to go and say it's a moral obligation. That if you're not happy, you're bad. That's what implied if you say that being happy is a moral obligation. All right, keep going, Dennis.
All right, Dennis, you fucked up already.
people have never thought of happiness in this way. Neither did I, to tell the truth, for much of my life.
What a truth
I thought
teller.
that happiness, and especially the pursuit of happiness, was all about oneself. But it isn't.
You're
Whether
a
or
fool,
not you're
Dennis.
happy, and most importantly, whether or not you act happy, is about altruism, not selfishness, because it is about how we affect others' lives.
Okay, so if you act happy, that's about altruism.
Yeah, I think he's just saying like, I think what he's basically going to say is just like it's nice to be polite to people, like it's nice to be nice.
It just sounds like
I think that's all this is going to be about.
Dennis.
There's going to be a lot of words, but I think what it's actually going to mean is just it's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
Which I can agree with.
If you're not acting happy all the time, you're making other people's lives hard.
Though,
so
yeah. And I'm wondering if he's going to get into like, is there anything toxic about sometimes acting happy when you're not? Maybe you're pushing things down. Maybe you're suppressing.
all right, we're giving him a lot of
Maybe
credit.
you're bullshitting. I'm guessing he won't get into that.
We're giving him a lot of credit.
But we'll see.
But we'll see.
And that's what makes it a
I did agree with his first sentence.
Right,
so
yeah,
at
me
least,
too.
you know.
That's how they get you.
Before he finished the sentence, he said something that made sense.
That's how they get you. They say something at the beginning. It's like, oh, it could work. And then they go, "Blah," and they go
and
crazy.
then they say,
It's like,
but
it's a moral obligation.
moral issue. Ask anybody who was raised by an unhappy parent whether or not happiness is a moral issue, and I assure you the answer.
No, it's not a moral issue. It's like you're saying, so if a parent is unhappy, it can affect a child. Sure. But how does that make it a moral issue? I'm sorry. Go on. I'm sorry.
The answer will be yes. It is no fun being raised by an unhappy parent,
when my parents are miserable.
or being married to an unhappy person, or being the parent of an unhappy child, or working with an unhappy coworker.
This is so. Imagine if you were like dealing with like clinical depression and you're like watching this and just like, if you're not happy, it's pretty fucked up of you.
Well, yeah, because he made it a moral issue.
Yeah.
Depression is immoral, everyone.
Our happiness.
You're bumming
affects
everybody
others
out.
profoundly. That's why happiness is a moral obligation. We are morally obligated to at least act as happy as possible.
Disgusting. That's disgusting. Fuck you.
But this is very revealing, though. I mean, like, if you think this, and this was great about PragerU, is it gives you such a window into these, conservative thought processes.
Disgusting.
Yeah, this gives such context to the way, like, like conservative pundits and media that it's always like hi, good morning, welcome to Fox News, like. It makes more sense to me now. Of like, if they're walking around thinking it's a moral obligation to act as happy as possible at all times, of course you'd behave like that.
There's like a joke about how, like, the whole, like, the way that people act in the South, or like the church women who go to church and then are like, oh, love you, bless your heart, and then all they do is talk shit and they're miserable.
Yeah.
Like, it's this kind of behavior.
My advice would be find your way to an authentic happiness for yourself, and then incidentally, incidentally, it'll make other people feel good. But if you're doing it, that's a fascinating thing about like the question of is it for yourself or is it for others? Because I think you really have to do it for yourself,
and then it's others.
It will follow that will happen. But if you're going around going like, I have to be happy for other people or else I'm letting them down and I'm morally bad, like you're not going to be fun to be around.
Also, that journey is going to make you so unhappy.
Oh my God, you'll be miserable.
You'll be fucking miserable.
But you'll act as happy as possible. And that's all that matters.
Like, I'm so turned off by this video.
Horrible.
Even if we don't feel happy. People can't be guided by feelings because it is how we act that affects others, not how we feel.
People can't be guided by feelings.
I don't know, Dennis.
It's a little weird leap, Dennis.
Also, I don't know if I've never seen anyone who falls in the conservative spectrum not be run by their feelings.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, it's a
Interesting.
big catchphrase.
I mean,
we got Ben Shapiro's
Facts
don't
over
care,
feeling.
Yeah, facts don't care about your feelings, but all of Ben Shapiro's arguments and Dennis Prager's arguments, and most of these guys, it's all built on feelings. It's entirely emotional arguments.
It's just feelings on feelings.
It's very funny.
A good analogy to bad moods is bad breath. Why do we brush our teeth multiple times every day? It's not only because of hygiene, it's because we want to present good breath to anybody who we come into contact with. Well, the same thing holds true for our moods. A bad mood should be regarded exactly as we regard bad breath. Why are you inflicting it on me, or why am I inflicting it on you?
Imagine, I mean, look, sometimes people are, like, get into, like, a super negative place, and it's uncalled for, and they're just a drag. Like, it's pointing to something real. I'm just imagining, like, encountering someone going through, like, intense emotional duress, and being like, "Oh, why are you inflicting this on me?" is so out there.
He's saying being happy and acting happy is a moral obligation, but that totally takes the other person out of the equation.
Yeah.
It is selfish for me to insist that you're always happy.
Yeah.
That's selfish.
And what's hilarious, too, is that, like, if he's saying that to be happy is a moral obligation, regardless of whether you're happy or not, then it follows that if someone is in a bad mood, it's still your moral obligation to just be happy. So how are you going to turn around and complain about, like, oh, these people with their bad moods inflicting on me? Bro, you're supposed to be happy all the time, even when you're not. So if someone brings a bad mood to you, Dennis Prager, you should just be happy about it because it's a moral obligation to be happy. But of course, what's actually going on here is that Dennis, with all of his philosophies, they don't apply to him. They apply to everybody fucking else.
Yeah.
He's saying everybody else has to be nice to make my day nice. Mm-hmm. And that's all it comes down to.
Just like that woman was telling anecdotal stories about her issues with her husband.
Yes. But if something upsets Dennis, well, then that's an upsetting thing that must be criticized and excised from people.
Right.
It's
Dennis, get a therapist.
Yeah, Dennis, please.
Stop. We are not your therapist,
Yeah,
Dennis.
stop the fireside chats and get a therapist.
Enough.
Just not right. That's why one should endeavor as much as possible to act as happy as possible, as often as possible. And just about anyone can do this. No matter how unhappy you may feel at any given moment, you can
And have to
make a decision on how to act. We may not be free to control whether we feel sad or happy,
Okay.
but we are free to control whether or not we present a happy countenance to others.
Lie to everyone.
Yeah.
Love Dennis Prager.
That doesn't mean we don't share how we feel with our best friends, including hopefully our spouse. Of course we can.
You complain to your spouse,
Yeah.
not your therapist, because
No.
therapy bad. but your spouse can take all of it. Go out in public, be nice at work, be nice to strangers, be nice to everyone, pretend you're
Act
happy.
happy all the
When you
time.
go home, dump it on your spouse.
Can, and without overdoing it, we should. You know, I'm really sad. I had this problem at work today. I have this problem with my marriage. I have this problem with my kid.
And
Tell your spouse you have this problem with your marriage.
the problem with my marriage. And I want to say, not to say, like, yes, people should share their feelings with their friends and family. We think we're not against that.
Of course.
But it is, to put it in the context of just suppress your feelings with everyone around you throughout your day and then let it all explode out on one person. Not the best.
I have this problem with my parents. But you don't inflict a bad mood on anybody. That's a different thing altogether.
Get over yourself.
We all
Dennis.
have the
This
capacity.
fucking attitude, meh, like fucking daddy to the world. Stop it. It's so insufferable.
But he's so smart.
He's such a fucking jackass.
He's such a
Just the most
genius, a
punchable
genie
face.
genius.
Capacity to control how we express ourselves, no matter how we feel. I can prove it. Imagine someone who is just acting miserably to his or her spouse. When somebody comes to the door, Have you ever noticed how nicely such a person will treat the stranger? How are they able in a split second to go from inflicting their awful mood on their spouse to acting beautifully toward the stranger who's at the door?
Wait, isn't this what he's been endorsing the whole time?
Yes.
And now he's saying, like, well, you should be happy. Okay.
Obviously, we can control our moods. Or how about this? Let's say you are chronically in a bad mood and I offered you $10,000 a week not to be in a bad mood. Do you think this would affect your ability to be in a good mood? I suspect so. And to be honest,
That's an insane situation that would never fucking happen.
Wait,
First of all,
what point is he trying to make? That, like, oh, you say you can't be happy? Well, what if I gave you $10,000 a week? Then I bet you could be happy. Well, like, yeah, because I'd have $40,000 a month to spend on happy things. Like, what? How is that making a point? I don't even understand what he's trying to assert.
This is so dumb.
Like, oh, you're in a bad mood? Bet you wouldn't be if you had all your heart's desires granted. Like, yes, Dennis. Yes, correct. You figured it out. It's confounding.
Someone please give me $10,000 a week to be in a good mood.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be happy. I will pretend to be happy at all times.
I will do it forever.
Give me $10,000 a week.
I'd never frown again.
have the power to affect how we feel, not only how we act. Abraham Lincoln famously said that we are as happy as we decide to be.
Well, if Lincoln
That
said
is
it,
exactly what we should decide. Being happier is good for us, and it is what we owe everybody who is in our lives.
So the happiness is a choice standpoint. I don't disagree with.
yeah, same here.
And I think there is a lot of like focus on negative, which is pretty inherent to American culture. But he is the whole idea of that choice of happiness, it falls more under contentment than like joy or bliss.
Yeah.
Because these feelings of happiness and joy and all of that, these are emotions and they can be fleeting. But contentment, yes, that's a choice. You can choose to be content with certain things within reason.
Yes, and that we do tend to connect our happiness far more to our circumstances than it actually needs to be.
Right.
And we can transcend that.
Yeah, happiness is not necessarily situational
Yeah.
at all.
And I would never...
Bliss can be, joy can be, but happiness, not situational.
And I would never argue for the moral obligation to choose happiness.
It's not a moral obligation.
You do it or you're bad. That's wacky. And the thing that, like, I think the far more, nuanced, healthy way to look at it is that your behavior will impact people always, regardless of what the behavior is. That you're responsible for your behavior, that there are consequences to certain kinds of behaviors, that like if you go around all day being in a bad mood for weeks straight, like it will affect people. It will affect how people look at you and feel about you, but none of it is good or bad. It's just cause and effect. I mean, we're very, in general, I think both philosophically, like, we don't believe that good and bad exists outside of human brains. Like, there is no morality in the universe without human interpretation. And that's what I think, totally kneecaps Dennis Prager's arguments and all these guys, like, from the beginning, is they're always building on this foundational premise that good and bad are things that exist in reality, that there is a good and there is a bad, and it's set and concrete, and even if every human went extinct, there'd still be goodness and badness in the universe. And that's insane. It's just not true. Now, I do believe, like, human morality, like a humanistic morality of, like, practicing a morality that values humans and human life and human experience. I think human morality exists and serves utility in a human society. But again, if we all go away, that goes away too. It only exists inside our brains.
I agree.
Anyway.
Becoming happier is another great benefit of acting happy. The happier we act, the happier we will feel.
No, that's true. That
That's
is true.
unless you're talking about depression.
Well, yeah,
That's true unless you're talking about something clinical.
Right,
And you
yes.
do need to talk about something clinical because that exists for a lot of people, especially now.
yes, and I think there have been like studies about like if you like pretend to smile.
Yeah,
you start
smiling in the
feeling
mirror makes you feel happier. That totally is a thing. But
is a thing.
you cannot exclude the group of people who have clinical depression.
Right.
Who
yeah.
cannot do that.
Yeah.
And that does not help. But anyway.
We think that our actions are determined by our feelings, but we have the power to achieve the opposite, to shape our feelings by our actions. How we act influences our feelings more than our feelings should ever be allowed to influence our behavior. So yes, indeed, we
what a
do have a
statement.
moral obligation to be, or at least to act, happy. The happy make the world better, and the unhappy make it worse.
Well, then you act happy, Dennis. Do you think you're acting happy in this video?
You're not at all. You're being fucking stone-faced,
You're fucking
Dennis.
like mad. You're like, there's nothing in his vibe that says happy at all. He's being like stern and like critical, judgmental. Like there's no happiness here. And you're telling me I have to be happy all the time, you fuck?
Every man video we've watched on PragerU, the man is very much like this. And every woman video we've watched on PragerU, the woman is like, one day I went to the store.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who are you really talking to, Dennis? Who are you really asking to be happy?
Yeah, tell all your fellow dudes to cheer the fuck up, Dennis.
Happiness is a huge issue. Lincoln was right. We are as happy as we decide to be. And it's time to make that
You should
decision.
smile more, Dennis.
Yeah, smile more, Dennis. Could you smile? You didn't smile
Why don't you
once in this
fucking
video.
smile?
You
I've
miserable
never seen
fuck.
you smile in my
You
life.
have a moral obligation to be happy and make me feel good, Dennis. By the way, tons of people throughout history have made this assertion philosophically, and you just had to pick Abraham fucking Lincoln, didn't you, Dennis? Like it had to be a founding father. Just
America.
a little quick on the side stroke job for the American heroes. Anyway.
Decision. I'm Dennis Prager.
You
Yeah,
sure
you
are.
sure fucking are,
Join
Dennis.
Prager University.
You're Dennis
Subscribe
Prager as
to our
shit.
YouTube